estrogen into the sweet spot, I decided to quit the game and I dropped all of the testosterone out of my cycle several months ago. I have been running no majorly aromatizable compounds. So all I've been running in various doses for the past like 3 months now is...
This video is titled Testosterone Replacement Therapy is Dead. I know it sounds a little hyperbolic or whatever, but actually this guy is onto something that for people that can't get their estrogen straight on TRT and thus their libido and erections are continually suffering, maybe it would help a lot of people. Look, the common issue on testosterone is people can't identify what the estrogen is, because like when you're in the good window of libido and erections, you don't go to fucking Quest and get labs, which you absolutely should. But also it's about keeping it there, keeping it there. In an endogenous testosterone state, like a guy that's natty, his estrogen pretty much stays around the level that it's staying, and it just kind of sits there consistently. It might go up a few picograms per milliliter, might drop a few picograms per milliliter, but you're not having major fluctuations of estradiol. And usually in an endogenous testosterone state, it's like pretty low. It's 20, 25, somewhere around there. TRT poses a problem for some individuals that don't respond well to AIs, can't really dial in their estrogen. Like they need a higher dose of testosterone to get like energy and anabolism, and they fucking feel good at higher doses. But that takes the estrogen to 75, and they've got an accordion dick, and they have their libido's a little shot. What this guy brings to light, and this was a video emailed to me months ago that I have been thinking a lot about, because I've had some clients that have had to do what this guy's suggesting, and it actually does work for some people, is removing testosterone completely and bringing non-aromatizable androgens as your TRT, as your androgen, but then using exogenous estrogen to dial in estrogen perfectly. All right, boys, before we start the video, look, Cortex Labs is a TRT guidance, sexual dysfunction resolution, and performance optimization company for men. We've got a range of different products ranging from the source list. This is a compilation of trusted sources for all anabolics, ancillaries, and hormone hacking agents, including raw DHT, DHT gel, HCG, testable esters, everything else. You can get that down in the description of this video. Torque Stack, this is a nootropic stack that I built. Look, if you want like an Adderall-like compound without the side effects, just get Torque. It's down in the description of this video. And lastly, I'm a coach on TRT protocol restructuring, and you can hire me for a one-off call while I'll redesign your protocol, or ongoing one-on-one packages for sexual dysfunction in under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, so look, the bottom line is, estrogen is the hardest thing to dial in on testosterone. This is why people use AIs or Proviron or Primo or Masteron, right? Because estrogen with the testosterone that they need to feel good will go above their range, the range that their body has been historically used to, and where their erections and libido kind of work and need to be. Now, people can get to new norms over time continuously using higher doses of testosterone, then the body tolerates more estrogen, but people don't want to wait, and sometimes it takes forever, and sometimes it doesn't happen. There's a whole host of things that dictate whether or not a person is going to tolerate higher estrogen or needs an AI on TRT, and a lot of that has to do with polymorphisms in the aromatase enzyme. I've got clients that need 0.125 milligrams Arimidex every other day on a pretty modest test dose, like test P at 25 milligrams a day, and then they're dialed in. They have no side effects, no joint pain, no nothing, but they have rock hard erections and libido is great. Then I have other guys that can push 45 to 65 picograms per milliliter of estradiol. They stay in that range. They have libido, they have erections, they have nocturnal erections, their testosterone's super high, and they're good. But then there are people that like the sweet spot's pretty narrow, call it 27 to like 40 picograms per milliliter of estrogen. And for whatever reason, like their body just starts to freak out when they go above or below those thresholds, whether it's taking an AI and taking it below 20, and then their libido suffers, their erections suffer, or not taking an AI and it goes above 40, and then again, libido erections suffer, they get moodiness and all these other side effects. I want to bring you guys to a video here, which is titled Testosterone Replacement Therapy is Dead by a guy named Trenemy. You guys want to sub to this dude's channel, please do. He's got a lot of insightful stuff and talks about some of the shit that, we talk about here, where he basically goes on to say, through this frustration of estradiol, I decided to go with a non-aromatizable set of androgens, okay? And administering exogenous estradiol so that he could dial in estrogen exactly where he needs it to be. So there's no guessing. There's no TRT taking estrogen out of the range and fucking things up. He controls the range. For people that are having problems that are I would say this was for people that are borderline ready to fucking throw in the white flag and quit TRT, this may be a route for you. A non-aromatizable androgen, you get the androgenic and anabolic effects that you need. I mean, this would probably be a DHT derivative or something like Deca. We'll get into that. And then the use of exogenous estradiol, because you need some of it, but you can dial it in exactly where you need it. And then your erections and libido are superb.
I had so many nightmares trying to dial my estrogen into the sweet spot, I decided to quit the game, and I dropped all of the testosterone out of my cycle several months ago. I have been running no majorly aromatizable compounds. So all I've been running in various doses for the past like 3 months now is Deca, which on paper does aromatize, Masteron, which does not, and Trenbolone, which does not. So I got out. I'm not going to go into all of the gory details in this video because I've already beat this point to death a million times. But the short version is I took all of the testosterone out of my system until my testosterone crashed into the toilet, and then I started administering estradiol valerate until I got my testosterone level to come right back into the center of the range, which is where I sit right now. In my body, that is requiring 0.15 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day. That keeps me in the dead center end of the range for a male. So since doing this, what I wanted to test was, do we really need bioidentical testosterone in our systems? The bro science for basically forever, and the medical science has told us that we always have to have testosterone as our base to any cycle or in any replacement context, because without testosterone, you don't have anything to aromatize into estrogen. If I was to stop taking estradiol valerate, my estrogen levels would crash into the toilet because I don't have enough aromatizable compounds in my system. Some people believe that nandrolone aromatizes and or upregulates the estrogen receptor, and I'm here to tell you not at 300 milligrams, because at 300 milligrams of Deca per week, my estrogen was still in the toilet. It wasn't even measurable. Hang on, I gotta get a drink. I should go through eating a steak. So here's your ASMR sip moment. So there was a research paper done some time ago where they tested Trenbolone, low doses of Trenbolone versus high doses of testosterone. You could probably just search that up on Google and find the study yourself. The Cliff's Notes version is that what they found was that low-dose Trenbolone produced better replacement effects in the human body. Actually, I think it was done in rats, honestly, than high doses of testosterone. So high doses of testosterone are problematic because testosterone 5-alpha reduces into DHT. So anytime you're using testosterone, some amount of it is going to 5-alpha reduce into DHT, which can cause male pattern balding, swelling of the prostate, all of the things that we basically don't want during our steroid cycles, you get via the 5-alpha reduction pathway. This is why a lot of guys are scared to death to use certain anabolics, because they think it's going to knock the hair off their head. I went off testosterone completely. I was concerned that I was going to experience side effects, negative side effects of the absence of testosterone in my body. I just thought, how could you not need testosterone, right? It's so ingrained in us that you have to have this testosterone base for 2 reasons. One, we need 5-alpha reduction into DHT. So we thought, and we need aromatase expression to get us to a stable concentration of estradiol. Well, the first part, the estradiol pathway, I proved very early on is not a problem at all. In fact, I have never felt better in my entire life than since I've been, replacing, than I do now with stable concentrations of estradiol. The improvement to my D game, the improvement to my sexual function has never been better for this protracted period of time. I have been having libido and sexual performance that has only been equaled in my life by being like 18 or the very first time I ran Proviron. The very first time I ran Proviron, I had raging out of control libido. My wife and I were going at it twice a day. I was sending her very adult messages all day long in the car, during the day at work. She was concerned like this guy's going to rag me out at this rate. This is the closest I have ever been in the last 5 years to a sustainable level of supraphysiological amounts of libido and sexual function. And that was the goal all along. I've been saying all along that my D game performs normally the vast majority of the time. I'm not looking for normal performance. I'm looking for abnormal, super physiological ability to stay hard as long as I want, to finish on command, there's all of these things I've talked about at detail. I'm not getting into in this video again. I am getting every single one of those benefits from running absolutely no testosterone and controlling my estrogen with estradiol valerate.
All right, so let's just discuss this for a second here. So the basic notion is that because you can't control estrogen, again, like these genetic polymorphisms in the aromatase enzyme, as well as like people not being able to identify what the range of estrogen they need to be in, and then people that have pretty exaggerated responses to aromatase inhibitors, like where 0.09 or something milligrams, just a very small dose of Arimidex will give them shoulder joint pain, otherwise joint pain, they'll be depressed or dick stops working. I mean, ultra low doses of AI. So these people that have this issue where like just estrogen is nearly impossible for them to control, a non-aromatizable androgen, right? In this case, you're talking about DECA and trenbolone, which, I think you'd have to do your research on that, and that's not something I would necessarily suggest people do. DECA can be prolactogenic. So, I mean, I don't, you'd have to approach it with caution. But the use of estradiol, exogenous estradiol, in this case, valerate, which is a pretty short half-life estradiol. And then, as he said, like, this is what I've been preaching all along. Once you find that sweet spot in estrogen, well, your dick's going to work all the time, your libido's going to work all the time. It's just about finding that place. And with testosterone, it tends to be difficult for a certain subset of individuals who can't tolerate AIs. They can't tolerate Masteron, Primo, anything that lowers estrogen, even if it's a little bit, it gives them side effects. And then, of course, like them being at their super physiologic estradiol level, they might feel fine, but they don't have morning erections or erections for sex. They got to rely on a bunch of Viagra, a bunch of Cialis or Trimix or whatever, and that's just no way to be a man. It's just no way to be on replacement therapy. What this guy did was get super crafty and recognize, okay, what I can do is administer an androgen. So I've got androgenic effects, I've got anabolism, and then just so estrogen gets bottomed out to zero or to close to zero, and then just take estradiol so that I can tell the estrogen exactly where to go. If I need to be at 25 to 35, I can get it there, with some trial and error over the course of a month or so with a pretty fast-acting, short-lived estradiol ester, and then I'm completely dialed in on androgens. I think this can be useful for all the people that can't take AIs or they can't let their estrogen go, like they're sort of stuck in this place, and no matter how they try to manipulate their fucking protocol, their side effects, this and that, the window comes, there's glimpses of good sexual function, then you exit the window. This doesn't happen all the time, but 20-30% of people, this happens to. It's like 97+% of my client base that come in that have these sorts of issues. This might be a solution for you people. I've got a handful of people on a similar protocol, like testosterone just wasn't it. So, my choice in this case is primobolan to be running primobolan with estradiol. And then those guys are dialed in. Those guys feel fucking great. And they're anabolic and they feel good and there's like limited side effects and their lipids look fine and their blood work looks good. Now, where I disagree with this guy, so just want to make that major point. This might be useful for people, but where I disagree is like that you don't need dihydrotestosterone. I mean, we've already proven and we see in both the literature as well as the anecdotals on, people that are using finasteride that they get starved of dihydrotestosterone for long enough. And then, their facial shape fucking changes. They start losing the ability to grow beard hair. Obviously, their dick goes numb and limp and their libido goes away completely. They start having cognitive symptoms and anxiety and otherwise symptoms. You don't want to not have exposure to dihydrotestosterone, which is why in these cases, you might want to experiment with primobolan or masteron or an otherwise DHT derivative that you could safely take and then use exogenous estradiol on top of that. All right, if you guys want to watch this whole video, I suggest you do, right? Because the primary focus or the thing to extract here is that this is a guy where the D game was sort of fluctuating and wasn't always perfect. And you want it to be as close to perfect as possible. And that's what I spend so much time talking about on this channel and help people to do in a professional capacity because it fucking matters. It's actually hard to do for a subset of individuals. And from this guy's own testament, presumably he's being honest about this. Libido and erections are really, really good on very, very controlled estrogen without having to take an AI, without having to run a DHT derivative so that you can control estrogen without creating side effects of estrogen dropping too rapidly, too quickly, and too much, without inhibiting aromatase in the brain. I think this is also one of the downsides of AIs. Yeah, you reduce your estrogen, but you're inhibiting aromatase in the brain, which you need for libido. The use of a non-aromatizable androgen of your choice, do your research, think about it, understand what's safe and what isn't. Either a fast-acting estradiol, or, you could dial in estradiol enanthate as well. A lot of the sources on Sourceless have estradiol enanthate for the record for people to understand. And there, you get the anabolic androgenic effects of an androgen, but your estrogen doesn't go out of range. You get to fine-tune, you get to pinpoint exactly where it needs to be. You get to, through experimentation of dosing, small doses of estradiol, get it exactly where you want it in your sweet spot. And then you have a fully functional kind of androgen protocol where the libido and erections are really, really good. Last point I'll make is I think we have to pose the question of sustainability. If you're running Tren, or let's call it primobolan, I think that's the most innocuous compound that you would want to run that I have experience doing in this exact context. If you're running nandrolone, for some people, prolactin's going to go up with the use of nandrolone. I think that's through some dopamine inhibition mechanism. That's not something you want to happen. So what are you going to run cabergoline while you're doing it? You have to put a protocol together that makes sense if you're in that state where you just need to fucking dial in and find the non-aromatizable androgen that makes sense for you, that you're willing to tolerate. If you're running Anavar, you're going to be anabolic. It's not super androgenic, but it is androgenic to an extent. So you're covered there. It's a DHT derivative, but it's going to skew your lipids. It might drop your HDL to unfavorable levels. Your LDL is probably going to go up. Your ApoB might go up, and you've got to figure out how to tolerate that. Liver enzymes might go up. You might need to cycle off of that. So there's all kind of careful consideration that needs to go into it, whether or not you're going to run a protocol like this. But if you've exhausted all other options and you're one of those unfortunate individuals that you can't tolerate AIs, but the estrogen needs to be a little lower, you can't tolerate Primo or Masteron by themselves because it takes it too low, you might want to find a non-aromatizable androgen and just use a little estradiol, get it where it needs to be. You're not going to grow boobs or anything. And then you're going to be completely dialed in on androgens. And then you can see how sustainable it is thereafter. Last point I'll make is that also what I've seen in coaching is that somewhat of a similar protocol or similar strategy of still using testosterone, right? But using either an AI or a DHT derivative that lowers estrogen to lower estrogen, but simultaneously dosing estradiol enanthate. The reason this is effective, and I've seen this be real fucking effective for getting people in, is because they take an AI or Primo or Masteron and then it just works too quickly, too well. and then the estrogen goes low and they get libido drops and they start getting joint pain and whatever. Even if it's at the lowest dose. I mean, I'm talking about 5 milligrams Primo balanitate per day. That's a fucking low dose of Primo, dude. I mean, who doses that low of a dose? Some people are that sensitive to the reduction in estrogen. But if you do that and you blow over the sweet spot, but then you dose a little bit of exogenous estradiol, well, then you get back up to the sweet spot and you can pretty much manipulate the protocol to keep it there. That is another option for people that want to experiment down this path. And again, source list has got exogenous estradiol, pretty much anything you can think of, any non-aromatizable androgen you can think of, you get that down the description of this video. All right, we want to thank our boy Trenemy for this video. It's just a discussion that I think needs to be had out there for those unlucky individuals that just can't dial in regardless. And I think this has to do with a lot of stuff. It's not just like your insulin function or liver function or thyroid function. There's plenty of people where all that stuff's fine, right? It's their individual physiology and not being able to tolerate, especially at the penile tissue level, excess estradiol, or however it's interfering with their erections and the hypothalamic arcuate nucleus, dopaminergic pathways of the hypothalamus, part of the brain, and the limbic system that controls libido. Just some food for thought. All right, boys, as I said in the beginning, look, I'm a coach on TRT protocol restructuring. It's the primary thing that I do. I mean, I get people with bad protocols or with protocols where libido and erections are hit or miss or suffering, and we've got to dial that in. You can hire me for the TRT protocol redesigned in under a minute at livecortex.com. We'll be on a fact-finding call as soon as tomorrow. If you need ongoing help, which a lot of people do, especially people with hardcore sexual dysfunction, whether it's erection issues, libido issues, or usually both, we're going to need 3 months. This is for serious people, usually business folks that have the budget, because it's going to be a lot of my time and a lot of your time and a lot of your compliance and a lot of executing on protocols. But if you want to go down that route, you're going to get better. It's just a matter of time to finding the right protocol. You can hire me for any of that stuff in under a minute at livecortex.com, and we'll be on the fact-finding call as soon as tomorrow. Again, speaking of estradiol and anything else you can think of, including Testosterone esters, non-aromatizable androgens, etc., just get the source list. Sometimes you have to circumvent your clinic. I came across these vendors over the years, vetted them and tested them myself, and quite honestly, it's changed my life. I mean, there's certain stuff that, first of all, the clinics won't prescribe to you, but secondarily, there's experiments. If you can circumvent them and sort of put them on the back burner for now, because they don't really care about dialing you in. They've got 30,000 customers or whatever it is, depending on the size of the clinic. A lot of these cases, you're going to have to be your own doctor. I mean, I know that sounds like a little daunting, but in some cases, you're just going to have to take matters into your own hands. You have the tools to do that with this source list. You can get it down in the description of this video and have an instant download right away. Again, if you want to take 2 pills and have instant brain energy, far better than like Red Bull or anything else. I built the best nootropic on the market, in my opinion. You can get it down in the description of this video. It's called Torque. All right, boys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Much more content coming soon. Let's go fucking kill the week and be productive. Content coming Wednesday or Thursday, then a live stream this Saturday. Like the video. Makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Just hit that like button, please. Really would mean a lot to me, and it matters for our channel. Sub to the channel if you're new. We do breakdowns on TRT, HRT, HRT Plus, all this stuff routinely. Kick ass, rock on, and I'll talk to you boys in the next one.